Welcome back. Let's work now on another example. We want to list all the movies where there is an actor with the role of James Bond. How can we write this query? You'll see that the role information is an attribute in the roles table. So we start first with the roles table. Let's go select star from roles. What do we have stored in the table? We have the actor ID, movie ID, and we have the description for the role. What we want to do now is we want to find the roles where the role attribute is James Bond. So we take the simple select query, we modify it, and we put where role is equal to James Bond. We execute the query, and here are all the actors and the movies where someone is playing James Bond. If you take a look at the results, we have 61 roles. What we want to do now is we want to find the full information about these movies instead of having just the movie ID. So we need to join with the movies table. So we take the existing query and we change it. Select star from roles R. We add an alias R for roles. And we're going to continue now with the inner join with the movies table. Inner join movies M. We'll call the movies table M. And we're going to join these two tables by specifying that the movie ID from the roles table needs to be equal to the ID in the movies table. So on m.id is r.movie ID. We keep the where condition, but let's also add the r dot prefix in the role. So the where clause now is where r dot role is equal to James Bond. We execute the query. Let's take a look at the results. The columns here are from the roles table. We have actor ID, movie ID, and the role. So you see all the roles are James Bond. Then we have the columns coming from the movies table. ID of the movie, name, year, and rank. Notice that the ID of the movie is equal to the movie ID column from the roles table. So for example, we have here GoldenEye. Here is the movie ID from the movies table, and the movie ID in the roles table is identical. And here are all the movies where there is an actor playing James Bond. Some of them are actual James Bond movies, some of them are parodies, and so on. In the current query, we expand the roles table with the movies table. Now let's write a slightly different query where we want to see the actors who play James Bond. Now we are going to join the roles table, but not with the movies table, but with the actors table. Select star from roles R. And now we're going to do an inner join, not with movies. We're going to join with the actors table. So now our query goes inner join actors A. And now the actor ID from the roles is going to be joined with the actors table. So the ID from the actors table needs to be equal to the actor ID from the roles table. So the on condition becomes on a.id, the ID from the actors, is equal to r.actor ID. And we still have our where condition where r.role is equal to James Bond. We execute this query, and these are the columns from the roles table. These are the columns from the movies table. And now notice that the columns that match are the actor ID from roles is matching the ID from the actors table. So let's take a look. In this movie, with movie ID 130945, the actor is Kevin Bayliss. We have Adam Blackwood played James Bond in these movies. Pierce Brosnan is playing James Bond in these movies. Sean Connery is playing James Bond in these movies, and so on. So far, we have done two joins. In one join, we joined the roles table with the movies table, and we got back the information about the movie. In the next join, we joined the roles table with the actors table, and we got back information about the actors. Let's try to do another example, and we're going to join the roles table with both the actors table and the movies table to get back results that contain both the actors and the movie. So again, we start with the basic roles query. Select star from roles R. where r.role is equal to James Bond. And now we need to modify the from part to join with the movies and the actors tables. So we're going first to join with the movies table, and we write inner join movies m on r.movieid is equal to m.id. Next, we are going to join with the actors table. So we continue inner join actors on a.id is equal to r.actor.id. Let's execute now this query and notice what we get back. Again, here are the columns from the roles table with actor ID, movie ID, and role. Next, we have the columns that are coming from the movies table, and these are the columns that are coming from the actors table. Notice now in the results, the ID, this column comes from the movies table, and it's always the same as the movie ID in the column that comes from the roles table. Similarly, notice the other ID column that we have that comes from the actors table. It's always equal to the actor ID from the roles table. Let's groom a little bit the results of this query. For example, let's start by renaming some of the columns. So we go and write select m.id as movie underscore ID, comma m.name as movie title, comma m.rank as movie rating, comma m.year as release year, a.id as actor ID, a.first name, comma a.last name. So notice what we do here is we use the alias name for the table to specify the attributes that we want to keep in the output. From the movie table, we keep the ID, which we call it movie ID in the results. The name attribute, we call it movie title. The rank attribute, we call it movie rating. And the year attribute, we call it release year. And from the actors table, we keep the ID, we rename it as actor ID, and then first name and the last name of the actor. So here is the result without getting back any of the columns that we don't need. And now let's say that we also want to keep only movies with ratings, so we can add a where clause where m.rank is not null. Now we get back only movies that have a rating, and we can also do order by m.rank descending to rank on top the most highly rated James Bond movies. So you'll see that not all of them are actual real James Bond movies. We have, for example, Gum Guy with Eric Trank being one of the movies that appear on top, but you'll also see that we have Goldfinger with Sean Connery as the most highly rated James Bond movie, followed by From Russia with Love and Dr. No. And the top ranked James Bond movie without Sean Connery is the one with Roger Moore, The Spy Who Loved Me, and so on. In this video, we tried a variety of joins to find different James Bond movies. We added information about the movies and about the actors that were playing James Bond. We started slowly expanding by adding tables, and then we selected the attributes that we want to show, adding conditions on the attributes, and potentially ordering the results. Right now, the query might seem big and scary at the end, but you know all the different components. So focus first on being able to read such queries with confidence and understand what is going on, and over time you will be able to also write them down easier and easier with practice. So in the next video, we'll continue with a few more examples. Until then, play around and practice. See you next time.